They already say that age is just a number, but is your credit score just a number, or is it a very important number? Craig?
Yes, it's a very important number, as well as your age is a very important number as well. We were talking about some of the things that impact your credit score, and we had mentioned that the most important thing, of course, is how you handle your loans in terms of your history, your repayment history. Do you pay loans on time, yes or no? And do you pay regularly? What people seem to forget here in Jamaica, it's not whether you've paid a loan and completed it, yes or no. It's how you've done so, and that's the most important thing. So oftentimes we get calls where persons may have settled that debt long after the fact of when it was actually expected to end, and they call you saying, you know, when is this going to be removed from my credit report? And credit facilities are removed 7 years after they're closed. So as long as you close it, that history will remain. And they're like, but I no longer have the facility, so why is it still represented on my report? And the question is, well, the answer is your report is what it is. It's a report. So it needs to show historical information. It's not a status at a point in time.
And it's not like a police record you can get expunged.
Well, there you go.
And that's exactly what came to mind.
Can you expunge it?
No, because the reality is the next person that's going to lend you wants to know what happened in your history. And just because you paid a loan completely, they would like to know how it was paid, if it was paid on time, yes or no. It's very important. Another important thing in your credit history as well is your demographics, like your age. The younger people tend to show higher risk, lower,
the younger
older persons.
Right. I don't like to call it older persons. Yes, more experienced persons.
Older persons.
They tend to show lower risk, and that is proven from the data, empirical evidence. Of course, older people tend to be more stable. They have more secure assets that they could lose.
They're more experienced in terms of knowledge. No, Craig, in a couple of weeks, about 3,000 Jamaicans become tertiary students. Many of them will be living on hall for the first time. Now, in the U.S., sometimes you go into your dorm room and there's a credit card. I'm not quite sure if it's that liberal here as yet, but even the concept of managing bills, hall fees, and related expenses, those, I gather, along with the Students' Loan Bureau's history, are a part of the credit rating.
Well, at the moment, the Student Loan Bureau history is a part of the credit rating.
It shouldn't be, but continue.
Yes, it is there now. They are specifically listed in our Credit Reporting Act as providers of data or eligible to provide data.
I fought that unsuccessfully.
Yes, right. But we, in terms of like the credit cards, which younger persons would get initially, yes, if that's with a commercial banking entity, that information would be shared with the Bureau at the moment, and they would be generating a history now. Their education in terms of how to manage that is an ongoing process. It's something that we, the Credit Bureau, try to engage in where we can. We've been members of the School Financial Education Program put on by the FSC, and we sponsored that program, I think, 3 years straight.
Which schools are you in? Is that at the tertiary level or at the high school, secondary?
Actually, that's more at the high school level. It's more at the high school level, and yes, I believe that was a start for them. I'm sure they will, with the success of the program, they'll try to push into other institutions.
Or more schools.
Or more schools, there you go, because really the education is important, and you know, I'm only one person. CREDITINFO has a certain amount of employees, so really what it needs is a collaborative effort from not only us, but also our financial institutions who do have the resources and the backbone. Some of them already have branches in multiple parishes across the island, and therefore they are very well equipped to help educate our people. So we stand ready to assist where we can, but we agree that there needs to be more work done in terms of the
financial literacy.
Financial literacy, especially for the young.
The Better Business Bureau in the United States of America reviews how commercial entities can offer consumers credit, including what would be the equivalent of hire purchase credit, or the ability to text for credit as a loan.
Sure.
So credit already is a loan, and then you're getting a loan as a credit. So you're getting loan.
Right.
But our consumers don't understand that.
Sure.
Which entity in Jamaica is the equivalent to the Better Business Bureau that will put out not just the information to consumers, but set the guidelines that the commercial entities must follow?
Well, we are regulated by the Bank of Jamaica, specifically the Financial Institution Supervisory Division, or the FISD. That's the division that specifically regulates the commercial banking sector as well.
And that's also the least mobile division. In other words, you're not going to see a youth information fair in Gimme Me Bit where the FISD is present.
Maybe not. You're probably correct in that regard. I don't have much perspective on the others to say that, but the reality is there needs to be a lot more work done where that is concerned, and they are the ones who dominate, who primarily play that role in terms of regulating us and assisting us to educate the public as well. And the Consumer Affairs Commission would have some responsibility to help to educate the consumers or the average person as well as our financial institutions. Right. But I think the responsibility rests with the central bank at the moment.
I know Raymond mentioned in terms of hire purchase, he mentioned hire purchase earlier. A lot of persons don't think when you take out a fridge or a couch from courts that it also adds to your profile. But please share or clarify if it really does or not.
Yes, well, hire purchase is essentially credit. You're borrowing goods for a time period and then you pay for it later.
So even if I didn't go to a financial institution, this is a furniture store.
Yes. And credit comes in the form of goods,
cash,
services. So credit is not just cash. People seem to oftentimes confuse that, and that's why it's good to have a forum like this where we can explain to the average Jamaican that no, these things actually do form a part of your credit history, even services and goods. And very importantly, another aspect of your credit score is the type of facilities that you have. The type and construction of your credit facility or your terms depend. I mean, they do lead to what your score is.
Right, so like a mortgage will be treated differently
from a credit card, from a car loan, from just an unsecured loan. And typically what it says is that mortgages tend to be lower risk than typical credit cards. And so the type of credit you take and the structure of the credit, whether it's regular installment payments or irregular payments, will affect your score.
Any tips to, like you spoke about a number, say someone has a credit score in your system from 250 to 900. They're at 280. How do they get to 600?
I think anything 600 and above would be good. You don't start at 280 because usually that's the lowest or the highest risk.
Oh, you have to fall there.
You'd have to fall there, typically, yes. Unless your first bit of information or data on the system is actually bad history. If your first history is showing defaulted payment information and it's very recent, then it could affect you negatively. But the most important things to remember as a average consumer with respect to your credit score is something I always teach our people, is the SFR rule. Severity, recency, frequency. And what it says is that when you look at a credit facility and its history, first, when something is outstanding or in arrears, you first have to determine how severe is it. Meaning, if it's $10 versus a loan that was $10 million, meaning $10 is outstanding, then that's not very severe. Then you have to look at recency. So you may look at someone who recently defaulted on their loan, but did they do it 5 times in the last year? Or did it happen 1 time 3 years ago? And those two scenarios are different. And typically things that happen more recently, in the most recent past, tend to have a higher rating towards the score. And meaning if it's negative information that happened very recently, it will have a big impact on your score. And also frequency, how regularly it happens.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of frequency, I think you'll be visiting us more frequently because I'm sure that this has only raised some questions, additional questions, and we would love to be able to provide those answers. It's now time for the CVM Live Morning Edition, the news with Whitney Levy. More CVM at sunrise when we come back.